Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. On today's podcast, I have Brennan Liming, who is an expert in running and a running coach. Brennan is a local legend in these parts down in North Carolina. In our episode, we cover topics like what it takes to be a fast runner, the common mistakes and setbacks that runners often face, and how to overcome them. We also talk about her journey, not only as a running and growing up in a running family, but also how to balance out running when you are raising a family and how that can be challenging, but it can be done. So I hope that you get a lot from this episode.
Brennan, thank you so much for coming on our show today. And I want to dive into a lot of different topics regarding running. But I first want to say that I stalked you, of course, and I saw some of your amazing feats. You have a 2:52 marathon, which was only a year ago?
A year ago, yes.
Crazy. You have a 1:21 half, and you have a 1:01 10 miler. That is pretty friggin' fast.
Thank you. Thank
Amazing. You. So tell us where your running route started, because clearly if you're hitting these numbers, this is not something that you just picked up yesterday. You've been in this thing for a while.
No, I started young. My parents were both runners, and they had a brother as well. He was 13 at the time, and I was 9. So I would do mile fun runs, and I would just for kicks, there was a mile loop in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and then I started getting a little more serious in middle school. We could run as 7th and 8th graders.
Wow.
So I ran on the track team, and then I had a science teacher that would bring us out running after school. And so, I just loved it. Loved it. So, I started over, 3 decades, almost a long time ago.
That's amazing. Now, over that time period, were you pretty certain that you were going to go into distance running, or how did you evolve into more the longer races?
Well, I couldn't sprint. It was more of a default, Jerry.
It's a great default.
Things don't work, and I even tried basketball in high school. That didn't go well either.
With your height? Oh my god! Oh my gosh!
So I played soccer. I did all the requisite kid sports, but running is really what I loved. That was my passion, and my parents really helped me to evolve into that too.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
So then, here's a question. So you're, a young athlete, growing into this sport. What was it about running that really kind of made you feel alive and sort of passionate about it?
Just the friends I would run with, and I just loved it. I loved the high, the runner's high. I loved that. I loved that I could just walk out my front door and do it. A lot of kids my age swam, and I just was not interested at all in it. It looked like a lot of work and really boring. I just kind of got into it. I just loved it. I just love how I felt when I got done. I loved how I felt doing it. And it's great. So
got it. What were your your key races or key distances, I should say, in high school and college, perhaps?
In high school, definitely the long ones. In high school, we all run a 5K during cross country season, and then indoor and outdoor, it was definitely the 2 mile.
Oh,
I really didn't start in the 2 mile until it just wasn't cool back in the 90s. So no one wanted to do the 2 mile. I didn't do the 2 mile until my senior year, and I regret that because it went really well. That was obviously the event made for me, yes. And then in college, it was the 3K and 5K.
Oh, okay, got it.
So in track, 3K and 5K, and then I dabbled in the 1500, but I just did not have the speed for that.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously cross country was, back then it was a 5K. I know it's a 6K now.
Yeah.
So, yes.
It's amazing.
All the long stuff.
Oh, it's very painful to embrace at a young age.
Yes, lots of laps.
So during your high school career, at what point were colleges looking for you or looking at you, or were you looking at colleges where you wanted to compete in?
Yeah, both. More back then, it was less of a junior thing, more of it like a senior.
Yeah.
I knew the colleges I wanted to go to academically, and then the coaches would reach out, or I would reach out to them. Mostly them reaching out to us, and it more phone calls.
Yeah.
And they would come to me. There's no social media. I'm dating myself, but they would reach out to me, and then I would go on recruiting trips and so forth with them. So
that's really cool. Where did you end up landing for college?
UNC Wilmington.
UNC Wilmington.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, right by the beach.
Right by the beach.
Oh my God.
Yes, that was a pool. I had all my admission stuff into app, and then I went to the beach. I was like, this is where I'm going to go. So
that's amazing.
Yes.
So, Brennan, along the way, you're a young runner. You're obviously coming into your calling here as a runner. Was there any one key mentor for you during that young age where you felt like because of this person, this is kind of where I am. This is the trajectory of my running career?
I would say my middle school science teacher, who I mentioned before,
Really?
he was just really inspiring. He was a runner, and he really kind of took me and a couple other the kids under his wing and
Yeah.
would run. We didn't have a cross country season then. So he would take us under a wing and just run with us several times a week. And that's really how I started loving the sport. Then we moved to North Carolina. We lived in Texas. We moved to North Carolina. And I was trying to decide between band. Band was huge in Texas
Oh my
with football, and then band and running. And thankfully I chose running.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yes.
So now, fast forward a couple years later, you're now running more competitively at different distances. You're running the Masters as well.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
I guess I'm in that category too. But as far as keeping longevity going and whatnot, what are some key things that you're doing for yourself at this point, Brennan, to keep yourself healthy and not injured?
Sure. I have realized over the years, back in college, I had a lot of stress fractures.
You did.
I think the reason for that was I was not taking care of myself. I was not sleeping enough. I was not probably eating enough at that time.
Yeah.
But growing, just the knowledge that we have now
It's different.
is amazing. It's just amazing. And that
Yeah.
I'm feeling myself well. I'm sleeping. I'm recovering enough. The main thing is, I think, is taking my recovery runs easy enough, really embracing them like after a hard workout.
Yeah.
Embracing those recovery runs where I am truly recovering. And, as you age, you need even more recovery time.
I'm
It's a
learning this the
thing.
hard way. Definitely.
But as I
Brennan.
really stress to my runners that I coach, it's so important to really, you should be able to have a whole conversation when you're running those easy runs. And I think I'm guilty of it. And I've come out of that stage now. I really embrace the easy days. I think that's really helped me and to remain uninjured. I have a really good history now and over 10 years not really being injured. So
That's really
it's
amazing.
awesome. Yes. But I
Holy
really
cow.
know my body now. I know what
Yeah.
I can do. I know what I should say no to as well.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot over the years. So
I still have a hard time saying no. So which is why I'm doing 2 half marathons within 2 weeks, which is not even the smartest thing for me. But I just get really greedy with progress, and I feel like I have to just do the next thing quickly, otherwise I lose momentum. It's a whole mental game that I play with myself, so I may not be the best example for our clients out there sometimes. Don't do as I do. That's
exactly.
So now, running's been a big part of your life. At what point did you decide that coaching was where you wanted to go?
It's a great question. So when I had I actually in college, when I look back at it, we had at UNC Wilmington. So Wilmington, Kate for Flyers was a summer running program for all ages. I mean, kids would come out at under 10 and then up through high school. So they would just run in the summer with us. So I started coaching then. I was just a volunteer coach.
Yeah.
A couple of my teammates and I got into that, and I just loved it. We would travel actually to Raleigh.
Oh, really?
To Durham to run some meets.
Oh,
But
nice.
I really found my love of coaching then. And then it wasn't until I had my first child that I didn't go back to work. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I wanted to also be involved and be busy doing something while I was at home. So then I was big time into triathlons at that time.
Yes.
So I started actually with triathletes, coaching them, and then it just grew. And then now I focus more on running.
Yeah.
I'm coaching runners, but I also dabble in triathlete coaching, excuse me.
Do you also still race in triathlon?
I do not.
So you're
No.
just fully into running. So what changed for you? Because I'm sort of getting into that same, I did most of triathlons too.
Yeah.
And not this as you've done, but I've been finding that for my life right now, running is the easiest thing to do. It doesn't take any gear.
Yes.
I just have to get up and go.
Yes. I think triathlons are awesome. They take a lot of time,
Yeah.
a lot of logistical planning.
Yeah.
Running is a lot different. You just walk out your front door, whereas you don't
Literally.
have to go to a pool. You don't have to ride for hours. So I did most of my triathlons pre-kid.
Yes.
And I just didn't think it was fair to my kids to be gone 6 hours on a Sunday, for instance. So my husband got me into it. So I used to think he was crazy for doing triathlons. He was like, I would never do that. And then here I was doing them pretty aggressively. So I just think there's a time and a space. I just found that running was easier. And that's really, even in my triathlete days, is what I excelled in, was the running. And that's my true passion.
Yeah.
So they just take a lot of training and time.
They do.
And a lot of mental toughness.
Yeah,
So,
it's 100%.
Yes.
And it's funny because it sounds like you and I both were not natural swimmers.
Nope.
So I just go right down to the bottom of the pool, and it's not fun. And I get very I get amazed and I admire swimmers. I always get angry at myself for kind of sucking at swimming. So it's like, oh my God, I wish I were like that.
Yes.
This jealousy, envy kind of thing. But what I also understand about triathlon is the runners, the strong runners are the ones that they're always looking for.
Yes. Yes. I would play the catch-up game. I am not a natural swimmer, but I would just do it out of pure force, get to the bike.
Yes.
And then I would slowly make up some time on the bike. And by the run, I would be passing everybody. And that was a good feeling. I think the swimmers always thought that's a tough place to be because you're always looking behind you.
Yes.
And I never had that. I would catch up to everybody on the run.
Amazing.
Which was is a great feeling. But I knew coming to, like, I was always racing with the elites. I would come after the swim and I would have the last bike there. And that's hard.
Demoralizing. It's like,
Very demoralizing. I was like, there's that. Some kitchen. So, yeah.
Katie Zaveris' husband. Yes. And so Tommy and I had a good conversation because he's actually now in the Olympic development program.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the questions I asked him, which was, and you actually confirmed this, was, what do you look for in young athletes when they're, to determine if they're ready for the Olympics? And he had said that the runners. I was like,
yes,
that's crazy. Yes. And it kind of made sense because it is, you can do a lot of catch up by then. And it's probably the longest part of the race in many different ways. But I was surprised that it wasn't actually the swimmer or the biker. Yeah.
No, the swimmers, I think, are attracted to triathlons, but they also, I think the run kind of scares them as well.
Yeah.
So in bike, I feel like anyone can kind of pick up the bike.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the
time one. Yeah.
Yes.
Time retention.
Yes. Yes. It's just like putting enough miles in.
Yeah.
But the runners usually are the ones who come out on top. I will say that.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know if it's still true or not, but they often say that the first swimmer out is rarely the winner.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, correct. Yes. Yes. Well, the swim in itself is a small part, especially of an Ironman.
Yeah.
It's a very small, like it's only an hour versus the bike is 3 or 4 hours.
Yes.
The run is 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a very small portion of it for sure. So, yes.
So let's talk about just competing for you at this point again, Brennan. So obviously you have been injury-free, which is great. Has your mindset changed over the years as far as kind of what it takes for you to start preparing for a race? And we know the preparation is different for you and I as we're getting younger. But what's changed upstairs over here for you?
I was really gunning to win every race back in the day.
Yeah.
That has changed a bit. Now, I remember being younger and I would always kind of make fun of the masters category. I was like, wow, why do they need a category for themselves? Now I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm embracing the masters. So I would now try to win the masters category overall. Really? So that's kind of a goal for some of these races. I would like to, be in the top 4 or 5 individually, like in a medium-sized marathon, but really to win masters, I think it's a big deal because you change a lot when you're 40, especially 50.
Definitely.
So I have different goals. I mean, the goals are always to do well and to reach my full potential at that time, but your priorities kind of change a little bit too.
I'm sure, yeah. So how do you then, if someone's making that transition into going into masters competitions, what do they have to do that?
I mean, just age. Just turn 40.
Just outlive everyone else.
Outlive everyone else. The thing is, when you think you turn 40, you're like, I got this, but everyone else gets faster as well. So
it's really funny, actually.
Everyone in Grandmasters, I guess, is 50.
Oh, it is?
Yes. And that's not a lot of races, obviously, don't have that. I think triathlons might have that.
The Grandmasters?
I think.
That's a great title. I love that.
Yeah. So, but most of it's just masters, so 40 and over. So you just have to turn the age, and there you go. So I have a lot of respect for the category now.
Oh, I love that.
So
now you work with runners of all levels, right?
Yes.
And would you say that obviously setting the right goals is appropriate? How do you guide your athletes to set realistic yet challenging goals? And what do you consider a big mistake, or maybe the biggest mistake, when it comes to goal setting?
That is a really good question, Jerry. So I first of all talk about where they've been. I get a good gauge on the history, what races they've done, what their trainings look like, what their mileage has been, injuries. So I get their full history right off the bat. And then ask, what are your goals? And then you don't want to just immediately off the bat, nope, you can't get that. I say, okay, this is your goal. I think we shouldn't set goals right off the bat. I think we need to see where you're going, where our training going, the consistency, all the things so that we can set realistic goals.
Yeah.
We usually talk about like A+ goals.
A+ goals.
But always realistic. If you have a fabulous day, the weather's right, you follow the plan, all the nutrition goes right, an A+ goal, then also like a B+ goal. So this is attainable as well, achievable, realistic. If something doesn't quite go right, what does that goal look for you? But I never want to set unrealistic goals because it's going to lead to disappointment. I will say most of my runners, almost all of them reach their goals. It's just they plus goals. If everything goes well, they follow the plan, the race plan, the training plan, all the things. They usually crush them, which is just makes me so happy. Yes,
that is really cool.
Yes.
Now, is that even for beginners that you've seen too?
Yeah, yes. Beginners are a little harder because they have this longer, especially usually my runners have been going for a while. I have a better idea because I've seen their prior races, what they've done to get there, what they're aiming for. The beginners, they have a very steep curve in that they can get better a lot faster.
Sure. Yes.
They can go from like a 5-hour marathon to a 4-hour marathon if things go right. Whereas going from like a 3:20 to a 3:10, but I can generally see, especially with my marathoners, I do a lot of pace work with them, a lot of marathon pace work within their long runs and their speed days. If things go right, I can generally get within 5 minutes of where they're going to finish.
Wow.
Just had like 6 runners run Chicago. I was all within a couple minutes of what I thought they could do. And just through their training, I could see where they were going to end up.
Yeah.
So on a good day.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's really important to be realistic. Like if things aren't going well, okay, let's reassess.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the disappointment, but I also don't, I want them to be training well and positive and all that. But I want to the goals change as we go.
Yeah.
But also I want them to be happy with what they've done and what they've set. So we really try for realistic goals.
I love that.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah. I can imagine some of the coaches who might be a little overzealous and maybe want to please their athletes. Oh, we can do that if we have the right mindset and plan. But I do appreciate that you said the realistic because I think sometimes people need that reality check.
Yes. So maybe, we can grow towards that. But for this first one that you have coming up in several months, I think this is what we can reach realistically. So, and if they beat that, then awesome. Let's keep going from there. So oftentimes too, people don't train. People just are really good racers.
Yeah.
Their training might not reflect that. So they really just kill it in a race where they haven't I don't see that as much in the training. That's generally not the case, but I do sometimes have a few surprises.
Yeah.
So people just come out of the gun just going.
That's really funny.
So,
You had mentioned before, as far as sometimes in a training plan, when somebody is preparing for a marathon, that there might be some indications that you kind of have a pretty good idea of what they're going to be pacing at during a marathon. What are one or two of those things that you're like, I see that he or she did this. I'm going to expect this kind of race out.
I might give them, as we progress, I might give them a long run, which is, say, 16 miles.
Yeah.
They're built up to that. Slowly but surely, we built up to the 16 miles. So I might start off with like 8 easy miles, but then at the end, I'm going to give them 4 by mile or 5 by mile, and then at goal marathon pace. So they might do 5 by mile at 9-minute pace if they want to go like sub 4 hours. And then if they're hitting that, and then we keep growing, and then the next workout might be 3 by 2 miles, and we keep growing. If they're going to hit those and consistently, and they're keeping up with all their mileage.
Yeah.
And I usually do workouts at the end of a long run so that they're getting used to working harder as the run goes. So then in a marathon, when things get tough at mile 18 to 26, they're ready to go because they have tested this in every long run. They have had to do a workout, not in every long run.
Right.
Some of the long runs, I'm a big pace person.
Yes.
I would not go out and run 18 miles at marathon pace. It's just too much. It's too much to recover from.
Yeah.
But spurts and intervals within the long run, I can generally tell if those are going well, that's what you're going to do in the race.
Got it.
So,
what are some key indicators for you when you have a sense, and what I really respect about coaches is the intuition that coaches have, just because they know their athletes so well. But maybe like 1 or 2 key indicators of somebody who might be even following the plan, but maybe overtraining.
Yeah. Their knees start hurting, or they're starting to get injuries. If they're not following me, or we find out that maybe this athlete should take their easy days on the bike or should cross train. I've had a few of those where this is not working out, and I never build anyone more than, the key is, 5 to 10% a week mileage wise. I would stay really true to that.
Yeah.
And then once we reach a certain time, we're going to stay there several weeks, down weeks, all this stuff. But an indicator might be that they start hurting, or they're not having fun anymore, or they're not sleeping as well, something like that. So I'm very quick to adapt as far as maybe let's take a few days or a day a week to bike or a day a week to do the elliptical. So then they really appreciate running, mentally, but also their body can adapt better. Or they might not be, some runners I've found that they can't run 6 days a week, and we adapt to that for sure. But I find that out pretty quickly. So, and I also look, obviously when I take a new client on, I look to see what they've been doing.
Yeah.
Do they like to go to the gym a couple days a week? Well, let's stick with that. But then slowly, maybe towards the marathon, add a day here and there. So,
Is there a time, generally speaking, Brennan, where you would say, hey, if your race is here, how many weeks back or how many months back you should start building that base up? Or do you feel like base should be on all year round kind of thing?
No, that's a great question. My MO usually is 18 weeks is a really good cycle before a marathon. But prior to that 18 weeks, when they get to that 18 weeks out, I like the long run to be consistently at like 12. So I want them very comfortable with 12 miles, and then we build from there. It seems like a lot.
Yeah.
But I really have the most success in that. I have runners that come to me, my marathon's in 15 weeks and my mileage is like 10. I'm like, we got some work to do, but also I just can't build that client up too quickly or we're going to run into injury. So then, reset expectations and goals, but really 18 weeks out, you should be and that's about a little over 4 months.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking at a fall marathon, that would be early summer. Where are you at? And what's going to be a way for you not to get injured and this to go well?
Yes. Are you a fan of the summer training that's involved to get through a fall? I suffered this summer for sure.
Oh, yes. I, for one, I just was talking to a client the other day. I don't sign up for early fall marathon.
Oh, you didn't?
November is the earliest. As I age, it's just a thing.
I feel so way. It's funny.
Something I had all my runners do Chicago, and it was a cool day in Chicago, but not as cool as it should have been.
Yeah.
I think. So I think in November, you're going to get a cool marathon.
Yes.
So, and then March or April is usually my cutoff for spring marathon.
Yes.
I have a little small window.
That's
Summer
awesome.
is real, but I also think it makes people tougher.
Oh,
Because I feel like if you can get through that and then it's a nice day, you're just going to fly.
Yeah.
So
definitely. As far as running goes, what are some of the maybe more common training pitfalls that you have seen? We've touched on a couple of them already in our conversation. The ones that you think might be more of a downfall for somebody who's trying to gun for a certain time or whatnot.
Yeah, that maybe starting too late, maybe not. I think to run a solid marathon, there needs to be a buildup. Your body needs to get used to the mileage and used to racing that far. So maybe going straight from a nothing to a marathon is tough. I know it's done.
Yeah.
And I know that people do. I'm not going to do a sprint triathlon. I'm going to do a full Ironman.
So many people like that.
Yes,
it's crazy.
there's an adaptation phase to your body. And I think that's kind of what I personally, my body had to get used to running these distances. And it is now, but it took several years to really build that mileage and be comfortable with that. Your body adapts, your mind adapts. I think one pitfall is not getting used to that first, going from couch to marathon. I guess another pitfall would be not running slow enough after your hard workout.
Yeah.
That's huge as far as not really being conversational pace the day after. I think that's huge. And maybe, if life comes about you, you don't have time to get something in, so you move your days around. I really want that athlete or client to talk to me. So, what's going to work best? If you didn't get that working out, let's work in another one, but let's move some things around where you're going to be properly recovered from your hard workout.
I love that. So then would you say that as a coach, you're also kind of the proponent of the, you got to, if you want to run fast, you have to run slow, 80-20 kind of thing?
Yes, I am. 80-20. I literally had a conversation the other day about this. Really, you shouldn't run super slow the other 80%. I was talking to my son about this. But slow enough on your recovery days that you're going to be able to run your fast days fast. Yes. And fast should not be more than 20% of your total mileage, for sure.
Love that. Now, it's funny because I want to go back into our population, which is mostly older athletes, I would say. We have a lot of very superb, high-caliber runners of different ages. I would say 40 to 60 is basically where a lot of our clients are. And one of the things you touched on before, which I really appreciate you saying, is that as you've gotten older, finding that sleep, eating, nutrition are really key components to making sure that you can stay injury-free, which is amazing that 10 years you haven't had any injuries. And I think a lot of what you do that's not running, these factors are really involved. And we say the same thing in our physical therapy where it's like, hey, we can do all the fun stuff and all the things in physical therapy that we do. But unless you got your sleep under control, unless we have a way to manage your stress, unless your nutrition is on point, doesn't matter what I do in the clinic, because you're going to go home and the same things are going to happen.
Yes.
It's going to prolong the whole affair here.
Yes.
Is that the sort of advice you also give to your runners as they get older too?
As for the aging, I think anyone over 40, it's a huge deal. Our bodies start breaking down, and it's just so important to fuel well and to sleep well and all the things. If I don't sleep well, the next day's not going to go well.
Terrible.
So I
Absolutely.
wake up, I'm not ready. I fell last week because I was not properly, I
Oh,
didn't
no.
sleep well. It's
Jeez.
dark, all
Yeah.
the things. I'm not picking up my feet. So all the things. So you just, it's all the little things.
Yeah.
And actually, my son, he runs in college now, and they really stress as coaches, they really stress. It's not just the training, it's all the things surrounding that. Your whole
Really?
life
Yeah.
has to be very, especially at that level,
Yeah.
very
Regimented.
very regimented. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a hobby for
Yeah.
us, right? So, I mean, you can only be so regimented or life's not going to be very fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but I would say, I would plan your life that things are going to go well for you.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. And, it's funny because one of the things that has been a big difference in my life and also a lot of our clients has been our protein intake. And Peter Attia and all these different dietitians out there who are way smarter than I am have really been pounding the fact that we oftentimes under protein. And what I know about a lot of runners is they're really good on race day fuel.
Yes.
And they're really good on carbing up, which is great.
Yes.
But, and this is funny hearing from Fleet Feet, actually, I was wondering, how come you guys don't have a lot of protein things? It was like, because runners don't come here looking for that. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Because that is like, I would say that a lot of runners could probably stay out of different kinds of injuries in and of itself just by taking enough protein. And what's recommended now, and as we get older, is at least 1 gram per pound body weight. And if we're not consuming that, we're definitely already at a deficit. And especially as we increase our distances and intensities for marathon training, we're definitely going to put ourselves in this position where injuries can happen more readily because we don't have the building blocks in our system to get better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Iron's a real issue.
Yes.
With younger runners, with females, even males.
Yeah.
Where a lot of iron's not coming from the carbs, it's coming from the proteins and all that. So I think that should be a thing. And I just don't think I'm very conscious of eating a lot of carbs, but I also make sure I'm very protein heavy as well. So
that's awesome. As far as now, you talked about your son running too. So now I've seen the legacy has now continued into your kids. So what's it like, or what has it been like for your kids growing up in your family as runners? Because you have two kids?
2 boys.
Two boys, yeah.
Two
and
boys.
they're both running?
They're both running.
Of course they are.
Yes, they're 16 and 18.
Amazing.
We were the parents who had both boys at age 1, like running the 100-meter dash and the turkey trot. We were those parents, taking pictures, the whole deal. So, however, we have let them decide what they want to do as far as do they want to run.
Right.
Our youngest son kind of took out a little hiatus in 8th grade. And I was very adamant about he needs to decide if this is for him.
Yeah.
So luckily he did choose the running route. My husband and I actually had a running club, both cross country and track for middle schoolers.
That's really cool.
So middle schools, the public schools around here don't have cross country.
They don't?
I know in Chapel Hill, Harborough area they do, but Wayne County does not. And so these kiddos, we wanted to give them the opportunity to, try out cross country before they went to high school.
Right.
And so we had a club for about 5 years. Both of our boys were in that club and just loved it. And we have great memories from that. And then, about 90% of those kids ended up running in high school and then college.
No way.
So it was really fun to be in meets and see those kids running and just loving it still. Yeah. So they started kind of with that. And then not until about 5th grade or so. I'm a big advocate of at that age, just them having fun, just learning the sport, not being too competitive. Obviously, my boys are just naturally competitive, but making sure it's fun and making sure they're going into high school excited and ready, not burn out, ready to grow and to learn the sport more. So it's been fun to see them grow in it. They definitely don't want to take our advice.
Yeah, of course not.
It's not. And, that can be aggravating, but we get it. I didn't ever want to take my parents' advice either.
No, did I, exactly.
So anyway, it's a generational thing. But we're really happy. When we vacation, we run together, on breaks. If they're really running recovery, they'll run with their mom, which is great too.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So then you made it a family affair, which is amazing. And it's really kind of cool that as a parent, it's not like you forced your sons to do this, but you wanted to have them find it for themselves. and to determine if they wanted to go that route.
Yes. Yeah. They dabbled in soccer and basketball and all that, but running, just like me, running was their thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't love when people call it a default sport, but sometimes that's what it is.
That's awesome. So then, Brennan, for any of the maybe young parents who listen to our show, or maybe even older parents, what's some advice that you might give to them as far as helping their kids get into running? Would you have them go into like the 100-meter dash at a young age too? And
Sure. Yeah. Just expose them. I mean, parents don't have to run themselves, but if you give them the opportunity or seek out other families that run or seek out kids that run, a lot of these, even elementary schools, have little run clubs they could be a part in, or
Yeah.
just take them out to the greenway, ride your bikes with them, run with them, just have fun as a family. I really think it's a thing. Or run to get ice cream, or it's a destination. You can make it fun that way, a destination run. But really, and I know they run in all these sports, but sometimes it's a punishment, which I don't love in some
Exactly.
sports.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
But just expose them in any way that you can. I'd love, this area has an awesome run club.
Yeah.
So for that age, but expose them to that. Don't make it too competitive, but just, I think the exposure to young age is really great. So
Yeah.
our area thrives, and so many kids have gotten into running. Running is considered cooler now, I
Yes.
think. I might be biased,
Yeah.
but it is. I just think running in general has really gotten a lot more popular. So.
Yeah. That's really great. And hopefully and for sure, we know that VO2 max is a great indicator for longevity.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I always felt the younger you can get involved in running or something cardiovascular,
Mhm.
coupled with strength training, I think it's going to be a very good pathway for health.
Yes, definitely. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree totally. Yep.
So talking about strength training, what do you think? And I've talked to a lot of runners, elite and beginners. And one of the things that I often find is that the strength training is like, oh, I'll get to it kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I have found that for my own running stuff that I do, and also for a lot of the athletes that we've worked with, that when they, even ultra guys and gals, when they actually start incorporating strength training, not only do they report feeling much better, but the recovery is better. They don't have as many injuries. What's been your experience with your clients, and how do you frame the value of strength training?
I agree completely. I think that I view it as a supplement to running, not a replacement.
Oh, yeah. for
So
sure.
I know I'm guilty of, I just go out for a run, come back, get in the shower. So I had to really take the time to do it. It's
Yeah.
usually not after I run, because
Mhm.
I'm always like right down to the minute,
Hear ya.
but I'll do it at night in front of the TV or whatever, make time for it. But I think it's a huge for injury prevention.
Yeah.
As you said, you get stronger in these muscles, and the stretching and the yoga and the strength training, all these things can really add to your running and not take away. I do think as marathoners go on, heavy lifting might sometimes take away from training, as a coach,
Mhm.
I'm a little biased. I don't want you to be your legs to be tired going
Yeah.
into like a big run.
100%. Yeah.
But also, I think if done correctly, and also I'm a big hard days hard, easy days easy
Yeah.
kind of coach.
Yeah.
So if you do the lifting on the same day you're doing your hard workouts,
Yeah, it's speed
treat
work.
that hard day hard
Yep.
is perfect. So then the next day can truly just be a recovery day.
Yeah.
I am a big advocate of that, as long as it's not impacting your ability to run fast,
Exactly.
but adding to it. Maybe, and especially for my newer runners, I'm a big advocate of just body weight type work.
Yeah.
Where you're not lifting the heavy weights, but you're just doing the squats without weights, or the deadlifts, whatever you want to do, but it doesn't involve a lot of weights, and kind of growing into that for
Yeah.
sure. But no, I think it's very important, especially the aging runners,
Yes.
especially.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Women,
Yeah.
they lose calcium and their bone growth and all that. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I agree with that. And especially, I guess it would be the women in their 40s and 60s as well, actually.
Yes.
We have found, and I agree with you, where I think that when somebody has no experience with any kind of weight,
Mhm.
making sure they actually have awareness of their body
Yes.
first and foremost.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
when you have somebody with bad form do a squat and then you add load to that,
Oh, yes.
you're only
The
gonna
thing.
cause more problems. So it's a problem that we see a lot, and it is what it is. But we always try to coach our patients on like, hey, listen, let me see how you hip hinge first.
Yes.
Let's see how you do your body weight squat
Yes.
first.
Yes.
And then from there, we'll start loading. And it's funny because the age-old myth of where runners are afraid of getting bulky, I'm like, you're not going to get,
No.
it's really hard to put muscle on. And now you're running all the time. It's really going to be that much harder.
Agreed.
And so,
Agreed.
we try to, convince runners, hey, listen, here's what the research says.
Uh-huh.
And we're not looking to make you bulky. We're just to make you a
Yes.
little stronger.
Yes.
And we also want to decompress your nervous system because it's been, very focused on running. If we can sort of cross-train with strength training,
Yes.
it's only going to make you much more pliable as a
Mhm.
runner to do those things effectively. And so when they finally get bought into it and we tell them, look, you're not going to bulk up, you're just going to get stronger.
Yes.
They buy into it and then they see the benefits and like, oh my God. I just want to share one story. We had a gal, Chrissy, who was trained for Boston. So she qualified. She was running a 3:10 already.
Oh,
so
wow.
which was fast.
Yes.
She tore her hamstring and it was about 10 weeks from Boston. She didn't really do any weight training or anything like that. So we did all of the stuff that you have actually been through yourself. And she recovered well, but we added quite a bit of her strength training in there. And she was a very sort of slender kind of gal. She ended up not only running without any pain at Boston, which is my biggest concern, but she actually did a 2:46.
Oh my!
I know. We're like, you're coming at our pot. We got to talk about this.
Wow.
It was crazy. And she hasn't had that hamstring issue ever again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So for us, it was like, I was just using that as I use it as a case study a lot. Like, listen, if you're going through some injuries and you haven't lifted any weights, making sure that you have a good base strength training program will be really helpful in getting you not only to feel better and recover, but also maybe even to run a performance you haven't expected.
Yes. Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
really appreciate it as a coach.
That's amazing. Yeah. I talk about several of my athletes as of late have had some hip issues and so forth. That's a strength issue for sure.
Yeah.
So then their shoes, but mainly it's not a matter of stretching. I think it's most times it's a matter of getting stronger.
Yeah, definitely.
So those muscles that carry the hips and definitely strengthening them up.
Yeah. So here's a question and you had dealt with some setbacks too with your chest fractures and stuff like that. What was it that that you were able to draw from, or what got you through those setbacks to be able to push forward and continue running?
I just immediately started cross training, doing what I could.
Like that. Yeah.
I don't love sitting on a bike in the gym. Obviously, my triathlon days, I loved it, but it was also a means to get to the run.
Oh yeah.
So with cross training, I'd just work as hard as I could. I knew that the time would go fast. It made me appreciate running even more.
Yeah.
Being in the gym or being in the pool, that kind of thing. But just trying to stay positive. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
With something like a stress fracture, there's an endpoint, a beginning point and end point. It's usually 6 weeks and you're still healing, but you're good. It's an easy diagnosable thing. Yeah. I know other hamstring issue, that kind of thing, there's a little more involved. Yeah. You don't know how long you're going to be out. But I think just trying to stay positive and also just knowing you are going to be back and you're going to be stronger for it. So
that's awesome. Talking about injuries now, Marie, one of the things that we have when we've worked patient runners in particular, what they've told us appreciate about us is that you guys understand because you guys run and whatnot, so you understand what I'm going through. Because I know that for a lot of people, and clearly for someone like yourself, running's been a whole part of your life. It's your identity.
Yes.
It's your social.
Yes.
So and I get really frustrated too when I hear of runners coming in from other places saying that, well, my doctor told me not to run. And that's like telling someone to be, but then the worst part, Brennan, is they're off. So it's like, stop running. Now what? And what's really frustrating for me to hear that, because you and I both know there's so many ways that you can get over a setback, like you said, cross training. And I'm just wondering, for you, how important is it for you as a coach to be able to know that your PTs, that maybe your friend or clients to also understand what the runners are going through?
Yeah, Jerry, I completely agree with you. I will say I did have a bout of tendonitis. I took back my non-injuries. I think it's because I did not wear my orthotics for an extended period of time. Yeah. This is my fault. But I do know when I got the tendonitis years ago that I went to an orthopedist first. An orthopedist put me in a boot and I was not to run. And a couple of weeks later, I went to my trusted PT who has had he treats a lot of runners.
Yeah.
You never should have been in a boot.
Yeah.
You should have been running ASAP. So not running, but treating that, doing the strength,
ASAP,
doing the stretching, doing all the stuff.
Absolutely.
So I definitely trust physios that have run or actually understand running.
Yeah.
That I'm a big believer in taking the rest if your body needs it, obviously.
Yes.
Broken bone or stress fracture, whatever the case may be, but running is going to be in your future.
Big time.
You can't, these people are not so hurt that they cannot get back to running. And physios, usually the good ones, get them back as fast as they can through the right training, the right methods and so forth. So I think it's ultra important. I only say go to people who have run before or understand runners. So for sure.
That's big time. Yeah. Now, as far as I know that for me and probably for you too, during races, when it gets really hard, there's a part of me that questions life. Why am I even here? I don't even know why I'm. What do you say or do for yourself personally, and what do you recommend to your clients when they're going through that mental patch of like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this?
I always think, and this sounds harsh, but I always think people are hurting worse than you are.
Oh, yeah.
The people behind you, the people in front of you, they are hurting worse than you
I
are.
like
This
that. I'm gonna
too
have to
shall
think about that
end.
one. Yeah.
And I just think about how good I'm going to feel when it's done.
Oh yeah.
And how much training you've dedicated to it, how much time has gone into it. But mostly for my clients, I tell them to trust in their training, that
Yeah.
they trust in the plan that I've given them. If they trust in their training, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think they're going to finish fine and well, crush their goals. If they ever doubt themselves, just say, pain is temporary. It's going to
Yeah.
pass. Just think of all the other people that have struggled or struggling more than you are.
Oh, I love that. Actually, I'm gonna have to think about that during my race this
Yes,
weekend.
I promise you, people are hurting worse than you are.
Oh my
This
goodness.
hill will end.
I love it. So let's talk about running as a parent, because I'll tell you that it was really hard for me to train when my kids were younger. And I got a lot of grief from my wife at the time, duly so, because between running a practice and also trying to be there for my kids and whatnot, and also my workouts, and it was really hard. And there was a period of time where I put on about 20 pounds because I could not work out, just by eating, just stressing out, whatever. What's some advice that you would give to maybe young parents who are maybe struggling with finding time for themselves to be able to run, take care of themselves, and also take care of their family?
Sure, no, it's a whole balance. So it's definitely about. I was lucky in that even when the kids were babies, I would go out very early in the morning and run, and I would make sure I was always home before they got up. So everyone was asleep in the house.
Yeah.
If they were to get up, my husband would have gotten to them and consoled them and gotten them up if they needed to be up. But I always did it early because I knew if I did not, it would not happen.
Yeah.
When the boys got a little able to hold their heads up, then I would take them in the jogging stroller.
Yeah.
So I do that. I did that. They didn't. My older son just wanted to run himself. He wasn't a big fan, but I always made sure that it fit into our family schedule. So what I would tell others, the same thing. I mean, make sure that, you and your spouse are on the same wavelength as far as that goes. What's going to work best for the family?
Yeah.
So I know like my kids race now and their races always come first.
Yeah.
As far as if they have something going on, like my son, the state meet in North Carolina is always the weekend of New York City Marathon.
Oh, wow.
Therefore, I've never run the New York City
Oh, my
Marathon. Well,
God.
in this 6-7 years, I
Yes.
will not run the New York City Marathon. But I know when they graduate, boom, I'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
But your kids are only young once, and they only
Yeah.
go through this once. So just as a mom and a parent, this time too shall pass. If I don't get a run in, I don't get a run in. But
Yeah.
if I really strive to do that first thing in the morning and just
Yeah.
make sure it doesn't interrupt other people's schedules. So
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the balance part, because I think, and as you've heard, a lot of Ironman couples end up divorced, and I think it becomes obsessive sometimes for the one party,
Yes.
especially when the other party doesn't sort of do the same stuff and they don't understand why that's a priority. And it's great, I think, in your case, where both you and your husband are runners.
Yes.
So there's a lot of empathy there and even sympathy, I would say. So for any like couples out there who may be struggling with that, do you have any sort of maybe little advice that how to like
It's tough.
navigate that?
I would say compromise.
Yes, right.
You got to kind of step in their shoes and say, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
You know? We were lucky. My husband and I met on the team in college.
Did you really?
We did, which is
Yeah.
neat at UNCW. And actually on my wedding ring, he engraved Run With Me Forever.
Oh,
Which is really neat. So-
man, that is
I
so
love
sweet.
that. So we have that. We understand each other. But in the same breath, I'm not going to make it the family focus. I mean, it's just a hobby, Jerry.
Yes.
So
No one's getting paid for this.
no one's going to pay for this. It's a hobby. So I just know my family comes first. So just balancing and compromising.
Yeah,
So-
that's awesome. Finally, I want to talk about just how do we get, if you're talking about any, like running as being something that anyone can do at any age, do you have any like general advice that you would give to someone just starting out? Because we do have some people that we meet who are like, oh, I'm going to start running. And like we talked about, I was going to get to my next marathon. How to start off that gingerly, and how would you guide them? Like if you were just kind of meet someone on the street, hey, you might want to think about these things.
Sure. Well, walk before you run.
Imagine that.
Start easy. Start with a walking program. If you're already doing a walking program, awesome.
Yeah.
Then I would say starting with intervals, starting with walk 1 minute, run 1 minute, walk 1 minute, run 1 minute, really easing into it.
Yeah.
Kind of like you hear the couch to 5K.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's something. And that maybe before you run a marathon, maybe you should try a 5K and a
Yeah.
10K and kind of keep building from that.
Yeah.
Also, I would say find your people, find other people that you can run with and meet. I think that's so important, both for accountability, for social reasons, for mental happiness.
Yeah.
The people that will get up with you and meet with you at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., whatever works best, like a run club or just a neighbor or a friend that can hold you accountable and you can strive for your goals together. But I would say slowly but surely is definitely the way to go.
That's great. It's funny because I think that's when a lot of this overtraining happens and a lot of injuries do happen when people just sort of rush the process.
Yes.
I have been guilty of that in the past and I can't say otherwise, but that was awesome. I'm going to make sure that we have our clients who are about to run connect with you. And by the way, for people who want to connect with you, Brennan, what's the best way to get in touch with you to talk about your run coaching program and stuff like that?
Sure. I have a good friend of mine created an Instagram account for me. I am not great at social media. So one of my clients, and she's like a daughter to me. She created my Instagram account is
Running B.
Like running and then the letter B. That's my Instagram. What do you call that?
Handle.
That's my Instagram.
What's up?
I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on anything else. So just Instagram.
Just from our interview, you're going to be on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Instagram. So there we go.
Okay, but that is how. And then in that, if you look at my contact information is in there on the page.
We'll have that. We'll have that in our show notes too. So people who hear the episode,
thank you,
and we'll make sure that people can get in touch with you. Now, you also do virtual coaching as well.
I do. Yes. Yeah. I mean, most of my coaching is virtual.
Oh, nice.
So I'll meet clients if they're local, obviously for track workouts or whatever the case may be. Or for a casual run. But most of what I do is I send weekly training workouts, very individualized to my clients.
Yeah.
And then, for instance, I went and saw a bunch of them run in Chicago. If they're local race, I'll attend that.
Oh, very nice.
Obviously, you can go through race plans. I'm constantly texting and having phone calls and all the things. I'm not physically there, but I'm definitely there holding their hands the whole way.
Yeah.
I think it's a thing now, and I think it works.
Yeah.
If done well.
Yeah.
I always have my clients, especially on hard workout days, check back in with me, send me their Garmin, send me a screenshot of their Garmin log, their laps. And it works really well. I can tell exactly what they're doing, exactly what's working, exactly what's not working. And it's worked really well. So.
I love that. So for any of our listeners, if you're looking for a very hands-on coach who is also an exceptional runner, who understands it and also understands the unique needs that parents have in raising a family of runners, I would say that Coach Brennan is the coach for you. So we'll make sure that we get people in contact with you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thanks, Jerry, very much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least one or two helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.